Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the very first sample session of the People Pleaser Healing Circle. I'm very grateful that you have decided to join me this morning. There are a few of you in the cohort that is joining me today that know a little bit about my work around energy healing or trauma healing. And as you also may have noticed, in the last 12 months, I decided to focus on people pleasing. It is the one thing that I have been able to get on top of and come out the other side of on my own without any specialist help, just thousands of hours of reading and researching and joining the dots, and then my own emotional strength training work. So as we get started, can you please in the chat let me know where you're coming in from, where you're joining the call from? As a couple of more people come in, and you see my eyes glaze over as I come into the space. And then we will get going. So just let me know in the chat. Okay, so we've got Melbourne, Hervey Bay, there's heaven on a stick up there, Mackay, Delaware and USA, and Meanjin, Brisbane, Waihi Beach in New Zealand. Kia ora, Amy. Okay, that's great. All right, so also in the chat, if you can let me know if you have ever experienced or had energy healing before. It's just a yes or no in the chat. Also, if you're open to it, essentially, one of the key things about people pleasing, it doesn't matter where you read anything. If you Google what is a people pleaser, how can I stop people pleasing, all of the material is going to say the same thing. It is a well-known psychological fact, and it was a term used, called fawning rather, way back in the day. I think Peter Walker was the man that came up with the term. So we have the mechanisms that we respond to. So fight, flight, freeze, and then fawning was added into the equation. And fawning is people pleasing. Okay. Now, also in the chat, let me know on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the best, and 10 being the worst, what would you class yourself on the people-pleasing scale? And as you do that, what I would like to bring to the front of the room, if you like, is the concept of, but I'm just being a nice person. When you are sitting in your value system of giving to others, of being kind to others, of jumping in and supporting other people, leaving yourself behind first, like Lee said 25, that's off the scale. So one of the things that this work is going to showcase for you, because people pleasers are adept at being able to reconcile within themselves why they do something and how helpful it is to justify putting themselves last. And then when people get used to it, when people are not challenged by your presence, and it builds and builds and builds, people go on the path of the least resistance. And in a work environment, especially if you are somebody that loves your job and you love your colleagues and you're giving over yourself and your time in order to keep people happy or to keep your job happy, all of those sorts of things, that's where the behaviours start to fall into what I'm going to call a trauma response. Now, let's have a chat about that word trauma. It's quite a polarizing word. And I also want to be the first to put my hand up to say that I struggled with the notion when I first started to realize that my people pleasing was a trauma response. I grew up stating on every day of the week and twice on weekends that I had a good childhood. And I remember when I got married when I was very young. And in fact, it was, if I'd have stayed married to that person, 1, I would have been dead, and 2, it would have been our 32nd wedding anniversary last week. But what I was doing was keeping all of the family happy. I was following the narrative that I had been given. And when my childhood finished, when I entered that marriage, it took 3 months for it to go pear-shaped. And all I could do in that time was to look at myself and think, what have I done wrong? Because I had been brought up that little girls married their daddies, like the same personality type, the protector, all of those sorts of things. So here I was hearing over and over in my head, what have I done wrong? How could I have got this so wrong? I had a good childhood. I'm not messed up. What's going on here? And that was the start of it. And it took me, and this is how long people pleasing unacknowledged can take, because it is a trauma response. You're going to be looking down the barrel of a long time of letting things go through the keeper, not making a fuss. And if you're in relationships with narcissists or people with personality disorders, then it's always going to be your fault. And one of the things when you understand how trauma is born, and it starts in a developmental part of your life where your brain is not able to reconcile things, what my work is going to show you is that there are times in your life where you had no capacity to understand what the adults were choosing. So you do the best you can with the statements of, this isn't safe, I've got to be a good girl or a good boy. So to help you understand, it took 18 years, 19 years for my life to sit there and become my responsibility. And then it's like, I've made a mess of this. What have I done wrong? But then as I got older, and then my first stopping putting everybody else first was when I was 26 years old and I had to run away. I left the country because my marriage, and he was threatening to kill me all of the time. And it was just a horrible relationship. So I ended up disappearing, if you like, for 2 years and living in the UK and following my own path. It was the first time I'd never people pleased. I didn't have to take my story with me. I didn't have to look at these people like they were going to abandon me if I didn't play along or make them happy or anything like that. It was just the most freeing thing. And the one thing I did was remove myself from the people who had created the people pleasing. Now, again, to put that in perspective, I'm the eldest child. There was 17 months between me and my sibling. When my sibling was born, it was back in the 70s. The doctors said it was okay to smoke during pregnancy. So my sibling was born with bronchial asthma. And the story I grew up with as a 17-month-old was that they had to pummel my siblings back so that they could breathe. And as a 17-month-old toddler, you can imagine that I would have had needs as well, but they were pushed aside because they had to keep my sibling alive. Now, as a 17-month-old that has not got the brain capacity, that's where it started to be born, which doesn't mean I had a bad childhood at that point. That came later. And because my mother was a marketing professional, my whole life was marketed to me, and I towed the line. Okay, I stopped being able to cry by the time I was 5, because if you cried, you got in trouble. So there's all these things that help you to develop into a people pleaser. Now, I would like to show you a screen. I'm just going to share my screen here. So I made a quadrant, and you can see that I've called it version 2345. It took me so long to try and get this, and this isn't actually even the one that I landed in at first. Obviously, it's the 2000th version. But if you understand, on one side, you've got identified trauma. So you've got low identified trauma and high identified trauma. And then the bottom one is trust in others. The foundation of people pleasing is a lack of trust that others will uphold the bargain to keep you safe. Let me say that again. People pleasing is a lack of trust in others that they will hold up their end of the bargain to keep you safe. It is in an adult world not rational because you're sitting there with those storylines that were born when you were little, before your brain could rationalize anything. And it's the narrative that runs through your nervous system that says, danger, Will Robinson. Okay. So when you have low identified trauma and low trust in others, you're at risk of burnout. You're in self-sacrifice mode. Okay. If you have low trust in others, but high identified trauma, you're also in a state of hypervigilance. Okay, so if your heart is racing, if you're able to scan a room, scan a situation, you're operating that you know who you are and what you're dealing with, but there's low trust in others, probably because you haven't articulated, or they've given you the evidence that they're a ticking time bomb. Again, these terms that I'm using are heavily emotional terms. But when you're dealing with trauma that's been stuck in your body and has been festering your whole life, that's actually what it is, which is what I'm going to showcase for you in a minute when we start the energy healing today. Then if you have low identified trauma and high trust in others, you're surviving in, and your exhaustion is building. But this area too is also high on the resentment table. Okay, so when you're surviving your story, life becomes a little bit transactional. You're sitting there showcasing to people how it is to not hurt you, not abandon you, all those sorts of things. And the resentment is starting to build. You're looking at things, your exhaustion is building, and you're like, this is unsustainable. So you might start saying things, you might become passive aggressive, you might start withdrawing a little bit. And then everybody's like, what's happening? Because they're not used to you not being on top of your game. The one that we're aiming for is high trust in others and high identified trauma, which is the assertion square. When you are in a sense of self-awareness and you know that you've done the work, you've identified where your people-pleasing traits have come from, and you can rationalize that it's your old brain trying to tell you to get to a place of safety and it's not actually telling you the truth. This is the quadrant that we actually want to aim for. So I'll just close that down there now. Okay. This session that we're going to go into is one of my signature emotional strength training sessions. It's just going to focus on one topic. So because we have 30 people have registered for the call today, we have 11 of you in the room. Over the last week or so, I've developed some oracle cards. So there's 55 cards with words that are associated to people-pleasing. And when the people-pleasing healing circle begins in October, we will be having an energy session like this every Monday, and I will be using one of these cards as the topic for that energy healing. And one of the things that happens with collective energy healing work is that everybody's like, oh my God, that's so on point. It's so hard to explain how it works. I tap into the energy. So back in 2009, I became attuned to Reiki, level 3 Reiki, and it opened up my gift of being able to see trauma in somebody's body. And then I have this very unique process that pulls together the information that I like to call it grounded. Obviously, seeing energy in something that's not tangible, it can be brushed with woo-woo. However, I have maintained across my career that I'm medically friendly. Where I can find research, I will speak to that research. And essentially, the one point of difference with my people-pleasing work is going to be the energy healing and cutting the ability of the stories that run through your body trying to keep you safe. We're going to cut the ties to that because they're essentially not giving you the chance to see things as they really are. Okay. Now, the people-pleasing healing circle is going to be one of those things where you can turn up on Monday to watch it live or get the recording, which will be live for the week for you to be able to listen to as many times as you need. And that's pretty much it. It's a self-driven listening, going through the process. And the vibration of my voice goes into your ears and finds the trapped messages, the blocked emotions. You drink a ton of water and then you go about your life. If you wanted to do the deep dive work, we have the recovery room, the people-pleasing recovery room, which is a 6-module deep dive into why the core reasons exist, and you heal those. And it's a deep dive, so you have to have a big commitment to going and doing that work. And we're starting a live version of that at the end of October if you're interested. But in these oracle cards, so we have 5 groups. Can you see the color changes there? So you've got fear of conflict is one clump. We have the fear of rejection and abandonment is the next big chunk that comes with people pleasing. Seeking external validation are the yellow cards. Guilt and obligation. One of the most fabulous things that people pleasers are savants at is taking responsibility for everything. And then when something isn't going right, whether you've contributed to it or not, the guilt and obligation kicks in and it's like you have to fix it. Because you were taught from a very early age that the adults didn't have a handle on things, which is where the trust issues were brought up. And then the final one is self-loathing and lack of self-esteem. So rather than use these cards today, I'm just going to, just thought I'd let you know that's the process that we'll be running through in the actual weekly healing circle. I'm going to tap into the energy of the group and find out what the priority is for you this week, so that as a collective, you can understand how collective energy works when we have a lot of people in the room. And that's the goal with this group as well. The more people that we have join the concept over time, the more in depth we're going to be able to go into the process. And then once a month, we're going to have a call, which will provide a hot seat where somebody can come in and talk about what they're going through in a people-pleasing context. And we'll work through it with different concepts that are real grounded concepts and communication tools. Should you decide to join, you'll be given 100 ways in some scripts on how to start communicating effectively away from people pleasing as you start to empower the people around you to handle their life so that you can start to focus on yours. Okay. All right. First of all, do you have some water with you? Just got to grab mine. Water is very, very important. I'm going to say an affirmation to start, and that is going to be the thing that puts you into a bubble. With collective work, and one of the problems that happens with big communities is that your energy can get caught up in other people's trauma. And one of the key aspects, one of the best aspects of my work since I began it in 2009 has been to protect everybody as part of their individual energy, even in collective work. So if you're a sensitive, if you walk into a shopping center and you can feel everything, which has been heightened in the last few years because of the pandemic and the fear energy that gripped the globe. So that's sort of a little bit of a heads up for you if you have felt more stress than normal, that there is an energy associated to that. And if you look at the picture of the world, it's got a blue bubble around it, and that's our atmosphere. And that's the energy binging off that and staying within. Just last week, there was an earthquake in Morocco that killed thousands of people, and there were floods in Libya, which also thousands of people died. Another mass exodus of souls, if you like, another mass exodus bringing on grief. So these are the things that definitely come up as part of a collective experience, okay? Your energy is protected. You do not have to worry about other people's trauma attaching to yours in this process. And then you'll see me shut my eyes. I've got some reference material beside me, and we will go into the process. Here we go. In God's light, I request that all known and unknown negative images, unhealthy beliefs, destructive cellular memories, and all physical issues associated to the group today be found open and healed. I ask the information to be provided in a clear and concise manner that's easy to understand, and I'm specifically shown everything that needs to be brought to the surface and swept away to allow this group to release on all physical, emotional, spiritual, and etheric levels anything and everything associated to the priority associated to people-pleasing in our life today. Thank you for elevating the group's frequency to support the resonance to transform and create a positive future for ourselves, where confidence, clarity, conviction, and trust in our ability to live our lives outside of people-pleasing comes naturally to us. Thank you for showing me everything associated to this blockage and for making today's session 100 times stronger than normal. Alrighty, so I'm going to close my eyes. You're welcome to close your eyes as well, if you like. So I'm just going to ask the greater whole, which is a human form, to walk into the space. Okay. So the greater whole has walked into the space, and essentially the shoulders are rigid. The human form has come in, and the shoulders are stand up straight, do as you're told, don't bring attention to yourself. But it's this metal mechanism that is controlling. So have you ever grown up with somebody that had one of those back braces because they had scoliosis? Do you remember those things? So up the top there was this frame, if you like, but this frame doesn't go down through the core of the body. It's the shoulders and the responsibility. And this metal aspect here, metal is the element of grief, okay? So the grief is controlling the concept of you and your people-pleasing and having to face forward. Now, this is the other good thing about what's coming out today. The process is helping me to see that energy associated to responsibility, the energy associated to, like I said, with my story, being the eldest child, being born, and when my sibling arrived, instant responsibility at making sure I was holding up my end of the bargain as a toddler in a family that in order that my sister would survive. So it's, and you can think of it as a 17-month-old, the responsibility story that comes with that. Then the thing that they're showing me, when I say they, this is whoever runs the collective, is your head is spinning around on itself trying to get the 360 view. But it's the hard way to do it because the head isn't supposed to spin. And if this wasn't being controlled, if this sense of responsibility, shoulders are shouldering responsibility, your energy would be able to turn and view and all those sort of things. So the message that's coming through the most for this is 100% of you have to know everything. You have to be able to see for yourself and still walk the path ahead. And the responsibility with that is ridiculous. It is unsustainable, having to do things the hard way. So that will also bring in the concept with people pleasing, which is actually one of the things that we deal with in the last module of the recovery hub, is all of the really yucky aspects of people pleasing, where there's martyrdom involved. It's sacrificing yourself, and sacrifice is one of the the cards in the, I'm pretty sure it's a self-loathing, is it? No. Or guilt and obligation. Sacrificing yourself. There we go. That's the sacrifice card. Selflessness is virtuous, but remember to nourish yourself too. It's safer to be able to have that responsibility because you can trust yourself. You can trust people, yourself to show up for other people. It's what you're trying to showcase to the world. But now we want to remove the energy associated to that. It's metal, it's man-made. It is a brace contraption that is holding you in a position to be able to support your shoulders' ability to hold the world up, if you like. So what I'm going to do is read, I've got a couple of reference books, Secret Language of Your Body, and then the Metaphysical Anatomy books. We're just going to have, actually, we'll look at the metaphysical one for shoulder problems to see what the message there for us today is. Carrying responsibility, financial, family, guilt about having fun. So, you know, with responsibility comes that whole being the better person, holding the world up while everybody else is having a good time, making it easy for people to have a good time, those sorts of things. So that would be something to ask yourself. What's your relationship with being allowed to relax and have a nice time in your world as compared to what everyone else is going through? So shoulder message is you feel weighed down by responsibilities, yet you're still willing to take on more. Your value is measured by how much you can do for others. You do not trust others to pull through for you or support you. And this is where I start saying you cannot make this shit up. This is exactly what I was talking about when it comes to understanding how these messages show up for you to be able to join the dots to give you the direction of where this is now going to be leaving your energy system. This makes you feel that you have to do everything by yourself in order to get it done right. So that's the other thing with this work and why it's gentle and why it is going to be weekly over the period of however long you choose to stay in the group. We do it in a small way, gently. There are no healing crises, and it gives yourself the time and space, because one of the things that the people-pleasing world will tell you is to just start implementing boundaries or just start saying no. And if you don't understand trauma, you're going to sit there and go into guilt and shame about why can't I change my behavior, because your nervous system is being dictated to by the stories that have been implanted in your energy system over decades, going, it's not safe to do that. So the other thing, you know, if you go and start implementing a boundary or you say no to someone, hands up or say in the chat if it has ever felt aggressive to you, or you feel like to say no to someone, you have to be aggressive because that's what you're used to. It's your safety mechanism that is sitting there and saying, be kind, be nice, don't hurt, all of those sorts of things. So that's why this metal thing is coming out of your energy system now. So what it's done, this grief and the mechanism is going to be released, which will then free up your neck and your head from spinning around. Now, neck issues are family problems. Again, this process is not going to be a blame factory that takes us into the space of pointing fingers at anyone and saying, you did this to me, you did that to me. We are going on a journey of understanding the trauma and what it has done to get you to a space where you may be having health issues, you might be having, you might be in burnout, you might have blown your world up because your resentment levels have gone to the next stage where you've had enough and you've lost your shit at everyone. And everybody's like, oh, you know, the amount of times that things started to get hard in my world, especially in my career, and I would leave instead of staying. And actually one of our members today, Alex, she's the negotiation navigator. She is somebody that is showcasing how to learn how to negotiate. And people pleasers don't negotiate because it's unsafe. And that's part of the reason as well why, as the process goes along, if you're in business or if you are in a career, we will be able to focus in on a couple of little topics as the time goes by, especially, and have little workshops associated to those specific areas of life. But as that thing has come off and your head has stopped spinning, the impact on your neck, which is relationship problems, inability to communicate feelings, difficulty making commitment, feeling stuck, inflexible, pressured, like someone or something is strangling you, propensity to sweep issues under the carpet so you don't have to deal with them. Again, the trust element. This is essentially the road that we're going to go on together, is building trust in yourself and then building trust in others that they can handle things without you having to take over or having to watch them blow things up and thinking that you have to change the world or implement new actions or sacrifice yourself because they don't know how to handle life as well as you do. These are all of the things that we keep saying to ourselves in order to stay in a place of safety, and it's not sustainable. And it's certainly not offering anybody, especially like my gig since 2009, actually I've been living this way since 1985, is that blocked emotions make you sick. And when you have subconscious emotions, unacknowledged emotions, and if your story is similar to mine, where you've been convinced that you had the perfect childhood and no rational ability to question it, I'm explaining to people that you're one aha moment away from living your best life. And I remember my biggest aha in my catalyst shifts was when I was sitting there saying to myself, where's the evidence? I had no evidence of what my marketing mother had fed me, and also my narcissistic father. I had no evidence of anything that they had purported to be true about their life. And actually all of the other things they said about everybody else that made them be the heroes in my world. Not one scrap of evidence. And that aha shifted my reality so completely in that moment that I can define that I went into my new phase of living my best life. And that's what this work is going to give you in a safe environment. Okay. So neck is clear, head has stopped spinning, shoulders are strong. So what's just happened, and this is why I need you to make sure you drink a lot of water today, and especially the next 2 days as well, so 3 days, I really, really, really need you to understand that you may feel a little bit exhausted, especially those who haven't had energy healing before. Once again, this is gentle work. It is a collective healing, so therefore it's not drilling down onto your specific story, but because of the spinning and the having to navigate while still walking ahead, your nervous system has been in a heightened response for a really long time. And that's the part that is going to make you sit and feel a little like you might go to bed at 7:30 tonight if you're in the southern hemisphere. If you're in the northern hemisphere, you might hang up and go to bed straight away. Whatever, it's okay. Just go with the flow. Do not push yourself through something if you're feeling tired. Okay, that is the energy doing its thing. Okay, so I'm just going to ask for anything else. Okay, so what I'm now going to ask, those contraptions, those mechanisms have been removed. And each week when I do this session, I'm going to ask for the cells in the collective, which will then, through the vibration of my voice, activate within you where the topic is stuck in your cells. So I'm just going to close my eyes again. So I want the cells containing the energy of grief, controlling the narrative of responsibility to be activated. Okay. So where it's been activated is the left side of the face, down through the chin and over to the shoulders. So this is the feminine. You have your right side is your masculine side, your feminine is your left side. Every human has both, okay? But right side is doing, left side is being. And the part of your face down through here and out to your shoulder, all of the cells have activated and they've come out. So they're like they're on a strand. So I'm now going to ask them to unhitch. And as soon as they unhitch from the collective, they stop having a color. So when they lit up, they were blue and red, and because the quantity was quite large, they merged into like a purple color if you were looking at it, and they've let go, and it's sort of like fallen on the floor as a clump of goop. And that is now out. So if you had any like tingles or feeling through here, then that's an example of feeling the energy shift if you are that sensitive. Yep, so the energy's just giving me the thumbs up, which is the signal of that's done. And that's a showcase of what an energy healing looks like when it comes to a topic around, as we're going to be doing the work with people pleasing. All right, so that's just the process. And each week we'll be having the conversation. Each week on the probably on the weekend, I'll be sending out a message within the Facebook group. I'm also looking at moving into a circle community, which is just an app on the phone. So if you're not somebody that is into Facebook with all of its glorious bots and fake profiles, we'll be moving over to that at some other point. Okay, so if you would like to come and join me and a few others as we start to build this community, the link to join is going into the chat room there. There's a monthly membership subscription, $26 a month Australian, and or a yearly membership, which is your $2.89. If you do happen to jump on the website and go to amandafoy.com.au/programs, and you want to look at the Recovery Hub, which is the deep dive for the lead up to when that starts at the end of October. If you choose to do that, you'll get the healing circle as part of that deal, so that the weekly energy sessions will support you. We do a 6-week program together where there's a bit of hand holding through the process, through Zoom calls, etc., and then the weekly energy healing to back up whatever is going on with that as well. Okay, so thank you so much for joining me this morning. I am looking forward to growing this community and doing my best work around giving people the freedom away from people pleasing. It's quite liberating when your brain is not running stories about what you're supposed to do and how you're supposed to feel and thinking about everybody else. Instead, we empower the people in our world to handle their lives and excel at being themselves. If you happen to be a person that has to exit folks from your world because they don't want to play along, then we will support you through that. I'm a survivor of that, if you like. I'm an adult orphan and my entire family is still alive. So we can support you through that. And then we'll also talk about the examples where I have people who have stepped into a non-people pleasing process and have been able to maintain their relationships with people because gratefully those people have been willing to grow as well. So it's definitely an interesting road. Don't encourage you doing it on your own because it takes an awful long time. Just ask me. But it is worth it. So thanks so much, everyone. I hope you have a great day, and I look forward to perhaps seeing you in my email soon. Bye for now.